Hi, I'm Michael, and in this video I will show you how you can use partial defaults to enhance your workflow building experience. You got a workflow here. Now, for this workflow you could just map all your inputs as direct inputs to the workflow like we're doing here, and this will result in a perfectly valid workflow. Nothing wrong with that. But one of our inputs is a CDT, a custom data type. And what that means is if we go on the general tab and look at it, you see that this OS install input is actually multiple inputs. So if an end user were to go in, they would have to populate this entire big input every time they want to execute the workflow. So instead, we can set a default value. And if we want to allow the user to make changes, we allow user override. And now we just select some default values, which the user could change if they wanted to, which simplifies the experience by a lot, because now the user will only have to add those values that we do not provide defaults for. There is a ton of inputs here, so let's fast forward a little bit. And then once we're done adding all of our inputs, we just need to save this input and then the workflow. Every time a user now wants to use that workflow, they will see all of our default values. So, like we said, once they execute the workflow, all the default values will be there. And now they just need to populate all the values that are not defaults. So in this case, we do have two server inputs because our workflow is not fully optimized yet, but all of our other defaults are there. So we just populate things like IP address and so on, but our net mask, our gateway, our default values, they're there. Once we've added all of them, we can just execute our workflow like we would normally. If you don't want to show all of these parameters to end users, and maybe you also want to avoid them being able to modify them, you can go back to the previous screen and edit the mapping. So what we can do, we can go into the OS install inputs, and in there we disable the allow user override. And when we now save the workflow and then execute again, users will now only be presented with those inputs that have no default value defined by us. I hope this video was helpful for you. We have a bunch of other videos around inter-site orchestration and inter-site in general,